My hat! Now we're going to start with the gearbox. So we have the front gearbox, which is bag C. Now I opened this toward the end of the my differential builds, but here we go. We're going to open this. Now inside, this is where your pinion is, and then you get some screws, and you will also get some shims. The shims you may or may not need. But they do include the shims. I've done some builds where I don't need them. I've done some builds where I do. But they have them there just in case. Keep in mind this is molded plastic. They may or may not be precisely the size that they need to be. So that being said, checking fitment here. Yeah, that works. All right. Good. So at this point, we're working with the front gearbox. Now the front gearbox I left on the right-hand side. And one of the things that you need to pay attention to is the orientation. If you do not, you can end up with your vehicle with a flip differential where the front and the rear wheels either go toward the center or they go outward. Long story short, your vehicle's not going to move the way that you want it. So both of them need to be rotating same direction, so the orientation is going to be important so you don't end up with a flipped differential. So here, if you look at the image, this is going to go toward the left, or away from you in this case, if you're building the vehicle where the front is toward your right. So that will go here. You're going to need this case. And this is where the shims come in. So the shims, you may, again, need them, you may not. But the shims, simply go in here, you can drop them in, so you can drop both of them in if you want and test it, or before you even use the shims, you can just drop this in. That fits perfectly, we don't need the shims. So we're just going to put these aside. If you try to force the shims in there, it's not going to work, you're probably going to damage them. And then you're going to end up removing them anyway. You take the back part. Now, one of these bearings is just going to press inside. The other bearing will press on the outside, and that is all you need to do there. Then after that, you're just going to get this pinion gear. This pinion gear is smaller. I think the tooth count is smaller than it is on a short course. So if we have this here, but just going to go ahead and drop this in. Now it's going to be spinning on bearings, so I'm not worried about it. That's why I didn't put any grease, just in case you were wondering. It's on bearings. Don't need grease. It shouldn't be spinning in the bearings, it should be spinning with the bearings. So there we go. Now this part will go here. One of the things to note is this flat face here. That is the side this goes. So this will go here. And then when I put the oppressor screw, set screw, grub screw, whatever you want to call it, it will lock it in place there. Now, one of the things to note is to not, one, you don't have to over tighten these, but the other thing too is, oh, that's a lot. Do not over press this, because then you may make the bearings bind. So I'm just setting it there, and then once it's here, I'm just going to tighten, and that is it. All right. Always use thread lock. That's why it's there. If you don't want to use what is supplied, even though it's good, it's very good, you can buy some other brands. I think Gorilla makes a type of thread lock. By the Loctite brand is very good as well. All right, great. So that being said, this will just drop in place, and this is actually quite simple. That's all that happens. And then you take your shock tower, and your shock tower is just going to sit right in there, and that is it. And if you're wondering which way it goes, I mean, if you were to install it backwards, it's not going to sit right. So this flat surface faces this way, and there it seats properly. And once it's sat, just drive the 4 screws through there. So you're gonna have just these screws here, and you're just gonna drive them through the shock tower. Actually, it's the bottom based on here. Let's see, what do we have? See, I see 4, but these are going through the lower shock tower. These are holding the differential based on what I am seeing here. And I want to see the complete image, and yes. All right, so let me do this step by step so you can see. I'll remove these like this. So the screws that you're going to be installing are these 2. So those go first. And you can see that in this picture. There are those screws right there. You need a 2.5 millimeter now. Yeah, everything about this truck just seems more robust. I could be imagining things, probably because I've been working with touring cars for the past, I don't know, quite a while actually. That's probably why I got used to maybe seeing the smaller parts, and this now seems massive. So maybe if I was working with my short course a little more, the difference, maybe there is no difference. There's a difference in the shock tower. The shock tower is different. Now, if you have an SET 410.3, if you already have it already and you want to buy all the conversion parts, you could, but it just seems like it may be a little too expensive. You're probably looking at over $100 for the parts. But let's see, maybe at some point I'll make a video. I have the 2 manuals. You can just go page by page and see what the different parts are, or at least what parts you should get. Although at that point, I'll be honest, you're almost better off just buying the MT410 kit. Alright. And these, do not over tighten these. If you over tighten these, the problem that you run is this will sometimes kind of open up here. So just be careful with that. Right, here we go. And that is it. So this is one of them. That is the front gearbox. And now we can get started with the rear gearbox, which is just bag B. And again, the shims you may need, you may not need. So I'm going to do the same thing I did with the other one. Take the rear differential. Again, look at the orientation. So you're going to be building them similarly. So take the front one. And then the gear goes on the left side. This one fits perfect too. So these shims, I do not need these shims. That is it. So for that, and let's go ahead and take the pinion out. Again, press the bearings in. So one on the inside, one on the outside. Then this goes through, and then the shim. Now this shim, this one here, you do want that, and the reason why is you do not want this to be riding on the bearing. That's the reason why. It'll, the shim will actually protect that from wearing out the bearing. What am I looking for? Thread lock. Here we go. Now when I screw this in, I'm actually holding the pinion with that finger so that the pinion doesn't fall through. So that is there, so now I just have to tighten. Right, and that is it. Wipe the excess off. We have our 4 screws. Close. Perfect. It's beautiful. All right. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to install those top 2, these 2 right here, right there, before 2.5, before we put the shock tower. And that will give us the rear. All right, so we'll get that one somewhat close. Here goes the next one. Again, do not over tighten these. Good. Then we're going to grab the shock tower, and the shock tower is just going to go here, and it'll go this way. Now this one's flat on both sides, but if you look at this, there's some material cut out from this face compared to this face. See, there's more material here. You can also see these. So these go toward the back, this face goes toward the front. That's what we have. No, actually I got it the other way. I apologize. These cutouts, these go toward the front, this goes toward the rear. So just look for these. See these cutouts? Those go, well, I guess it would be back, right, away from that. Right. Again, it's been a while since I've built a Tekno. That's what I'm trying to remember at the same time, how my SET 410.3 build went. No, it was very smooth. Like I said, the instructions manual, it's a very, very good manual. Everything is straightforward. You just follow the pages. But I don't remember the differences between the actual hardware. A lot of these components, for example, the screws, they just seem much larger. For example, here I'm using this 2.5 driver. I don't remember using a 2.5 driver that much on the other build. I could be wrong. Guess at the end, once I compare the two side by side, I'll be able to tell. All right. So one of the checks that you can do as well is if you place these two here, if you spin them, see, this is going back. So this would be reverse. So if I spin left, it goes in reverse. So if I spin left, it goes in reverse. So this is how I know I'm orienting, these are oriented the correct way. So if I spin right, it goes forward. If I spin right, it should go forward. So these are good to go. And that's the way to know. So that's it for this one. On the next video, I will cover the arms and we will move on to bag E. But these are the two gearboxes right here, front and rear. Thank you so much for watching.